Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Avenue A, where we talk acting, we talk networking, and we talk the arts industries as a whole. Happy Friday. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. Hi, Dana. So excited for the show. Me too. Avenue A is definitely a highlight of my week. It's a great way to bookend, I think, the work week and get to sit down and chat live, if virtually, with some amazing artists and creators and just pick their brains and here's some Friday evening wisdom. So if you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. Avenue A is a platform I created to stay connected with fellow artists during this pandemic where we are mostly isolated. And I also created it to provide a resource for other young artists who are making their way into the industry and need some guidance, because don't we all? So if you're a recurring joiner, thank you so much for supporting Avenue A and for being here again. Grab your cocktail, grab your mocktail, your glass of water, and get cozy because we have a great guest tonight as well. So without further ado, our amazing guest tonight is Yan Li. So Yan was born in China and spent his childhood among the movie lots of Beijing, where he originated such meaty roles as watermelon eating kid number 2 and accidentally looking into camera during walk by. Pre-puberty, he moved to the Canadian prairies, where he learned to tame llamas, then over to the West Coast, where he learned not to care about stuff. Yan began tickling ivories at age 3, not because he loved music, but because he was told to. His parents had heard that music lessons improved a child's aptitude for more upstanding work, such as account management or bottle making. Oh, the irony. He received his BA in Composition and Theory from the University of Victoria, then was awarded a Tisch Fellowship and received his MFA in Musical Theater Writing from NYU, and he's now based in New York City. As a music director, he especially enjoys working on new musicals and is committed to fully representing the intentions of the writers in performance. As a writer, Yan's work has been performed at 59 East 59th, Signature Theater, the O'Neill Center, NYMF, 54 Below, West End Theater, and other alcohol-serving establishments. With his wonderful collaborators, he has been commissioned by Live and in Color, Pacific Opera Victoria, Musical Stage Company, Prospect Theater Company, Blue Bridge Repertory Theater, and so many more. So without further ado, let's welcome Yan Li to the stage.
Hello.
Hi, Yan.
Hey, Kelsey.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So for the viewers watching, I know that I've had a few guests on who I had met through the musical Promenade, and Yan is another guest that we connected during the musical Promenade at NYU at the beginning of last year. So it was like, I think we closed the show 3 days or something before the pandemic hit. Is that right?
Oh yeah, it was right down to the wire. I remember going home on the subway every day and seeing more people wearing face masks, and then we got it.
Yeah, but we were able to close and
closed.
virtually unscathed. So we were all so thankful for that, I think.
It kind of was the perfect show to play as the world was shutting down.
It was. It was. So, okay, Yan, let's just jump right in. Can you tell us a bit about your artistic journey and what led you to NYU and ultimately New York City?
I think you covered most of the basic bases in that intro there. I was born in China, came from, on my dad's side of the family, we're all filmmakers and actors and cinematographers, and my mom's side of the family were all editors and publishers and translators. And then we moved to Canada. Like any good Asian parents, they started me on the piano really early, age of 3. And never thought, it's very early. I never thought I would go into the music, but then they were super supportive when I decided to pursue it full time. And then I was, just living in Canada, playing around. I moved to Toronto into a bigger theater scene, and then decided just on a whim to apply for the NYU musical theater writing program, and luckily got in. So I moved down to New York, told all my friends in Canada I'd be back in Canada as soon as the program wrapped, but then kind of just fell in love with the scene down here and have been just working around New York and across the States and across Canada ever since.
Wow. So growing up, when you were starting to sort of realize your affinity for theater, you still never thought that you would be in New York?
No, I was completely taken by the stereotype of like, you know, bandits around every street corner and all that. You know that episode of The Simpsons where Homer comes to New York for like a brief stopover and he's just like robbed 3 times in the same block.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first time I had to do laundry at a laundromat in Brooklyn, I sat by my washing machine for like the entire 90 minutes because I thought people would just take my clothes. That's what we were told.
No, I definitely did the same thing when I first moved here. Yeah, it's a learning curve. I think New York City is definitely a learning curve.
Yeah.
So my next question, you know, once you moved here and you sort of started working, gaining contacts, since then, how have you maintained your individuality as an artist in an industry that I find often rewards sameness?
Right. And I'm sure this is different between, you know, writers and actors have different ways on this road here. For me, it was really helpful to get into New York and also to the States through the musical writing program because it immediately gives you a support base of like hundreds of people between your class and the class above you and the class below you and all the teachers and everything else. Once you leave that program, you know, like a couple hundred people already. And also by virtue of it being like a writing program where every day you're thrown into like, how would you do this assignment? What's your voice on this thing? It kind of helps you find your voice in a way because you're kind of just put through the ringer there and either you find your voice or you find like, oh, maybe this is not for me. So it really helped. It really helped my journey to sort of come out of that program feeling pretty confident that I had something a little distinct from everybody else and kind of know which area I was going into, which completely changed. Like 6 years out of the program, what I was interested in writing completely changed after that. But it was still nice to go through that and feel that kind of evolution from there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm wondering, when you're in a program like that, did you ever feel like your professors or the curriculum was limiting you in a way? Like, did you ever feel like, oh, I'm not sure like what I actually want to write because I'm in this certain program where we're doing these certain things? What was your experience navigating that?
I would say that for the musical theater writing program, we actually, it sounds kind of cheesy to say this, but we actually learned more from each other in the class than we did from the professors in certain ways because, we kept on just stealing from each other. People's stuff that we liked. We're like, oh, I'll take that and put that in my next song kind of thing. And I would say with the professors, they were across the board really great and really supportive. We did get some pushback during our second year when it came to our thesis musical. And I wrote my thesis with this amazing writer called Jason Purdy, who I still work with sometimes. And we went into our thesis year. Well, everyone has to go into their thesis year with 2 ideas to pitch to the faculty. Okay. And we had an idea that we thought was a shoo-in, which was super marketable, and then an idea which we were really terrified of that we were really excited to write about. So our shoo-in idea was about the fossil wars of the 1860s. And for those of you who might not know, the fossil wars was between these 2 paleontologists, Othniel Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope. One was based out of Philadelphia, one was based out of Yale. And between the 2 of them, they both went out west, and over like a 30-year period, they discovered all the dinosaurs, iconic dinosaurs we know today in the American West. So like Triceratops, Stegosaurus, Tyrannosaurus Rex, these were all found by these 2 guys who kept on slandering each other in the press, kept on hiring people to like dynamite each other's dig sites and steal each other's fossils. It's literally a story about cowboys and dinosaurs.
Yes.
So that was a very marketable idea, and we wrote a couple of like spec songs for it, and people were like, oh yeah, this is definitely the thing we should write. And then we bring in our second idea. So Jason and I were really fascinated by the prospect of seeing if we could write a true piece of horror, like something that genuinely terrified people in musical theater in a way that wasn't gothic like Sweeney Todd or like sensational like Lizzie Borden, something that would work and function as like a genuine piece of horror that people would like almost want to run out of the theater doing. Wow. And the idea we came up with was an original story called Sweet Nothings. It's about 2 friends who grow up in this small town, and they conduct a nightly bloodletting ritual that they believe cleanses their town of evil. And over the course of the show, one gradually tortures the other to death for the greater good.
Whoa.
And that was the second one we pitched to them. Which
that is scary. Yeah. It's certainly scary.
We ended up doing that show, but we had to fight really hard for it because a lot of the professors were like, we're not sure if you should do this.
Yeah.
And we're like, we're not sure either, but we're paying to be in the safe environments where there's no critics or any need to sell tickets. So why not try the one that we don't know how to write as opposed to the one we do know how to write? Right. So we just kept on plugging away at that one. The professors were incredible, especially our advisor, Robert Lee, who like jumped on board and helped us. But every week, Jason and I would just come out of our sessions with the profs and go into a debrief in the stairwell, you know, in the fire escape section, and just sort of pick and choose between like what critiques we wanted to adopt and which ones we felt weren't really right for what we were doing. And we just kept going at it. And by the end of that year, I think we wrote a pretty scary show.
So, okay, 2 follow-up questions to what you just said, because that story was amazing. I just want to come back to what you just said about debriefing in the stairwell, and you consciously decide which pieces of feedback you want to accept and take in and move forward with, and which you're going to leave behind. I think that is so huge for any artist who is, you know, training or receiving feedback or working with other coaches and mentors, which I think we all are in some capacity throughout our career, but especially in school. And it can be so easy, I think, to come out of especially an educational setting where you're, you know, being like evaluated or graded by these teachers or professors who are, you know, more experienced, etc. And to just be like, oh my gosh, like everything they said, like, is word of God. Like, I need to take all of this. Yeah. I think it's so easy to fall into that. And so I just respect so much that you two were so deliberate to, you know, be open-minded in that feedback session, but then come out and be like, okay, what were we given and what are we going to move forward with?
Oh, yeah. Especially because we're in theater. Every one of us has a kind of let me please my parents syndrome to begin with anyway.
Oh,
so it's really easy to want to go for, you know, the compliments and everything else. And not to say that some of the advice wasn't useful in some degree. It was just sort of sifting through and finding out. Because, you know, even as I teach now, I realize, although me and other people on the creative team for a certain show may all be on the same page about the direction, we may have like 3 different vocabularies to say something. And I might say, you know, sing this song more from your elbow. And you're like, what the hell does that mean? And the other person was like, you know, what are the stakes? And you're like, oh, okay, that's what you meant. But we were both thinking the same thing. I didn't have the right words for it. So it's a lot of that situation too.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. But
yeah.
One thing that Jason and I really in our debrief sessions that we clung to, and I think it's a good thing for writers. I don't know how this applies to on the acting side of it, but we just kept on going back to like, what was the kernel? What was the thing that really made us want to write this show? What was that kernel there of like, oh, we can live with this story for multiple years? Because it's raising a baby, basically. You're raising a little kid together.
Absolutely.
And anytime we were confused as to the direction we wanted to go, we were like, let's go back to that kernel and see how this relates to that kernel. And if it did, great.
Yeah. And I think as you were just saying that, I was like, okay, how does this relate to acting? And I think the way in which it does is that, you know, even though as actors we're hired usually to take on someone else's story, right, and portray it. So it's a little different in terms of like what the creation entails, but at the heart of acting, you're creating a character, you know, and the casting team or the writer and the director, they're not going to do that for you. They've written it down, they've put it in your hands, right? But on the acting side, like, you really do have to start from the kernel, like you said, of what that character means to you and how you you know, understand the character, and then you build it from there. So even, you know, taking feedback from the director and the writer, it's also valuable because it is someone else's creation. But at the same time, you as the actor have to build on what you know of the character and what you're creating in order to, you know, put it on and be that character.
Totally. And going back to Promenade, I think one thing that we me and Melissa and Louis really enjoyed working on was the fact that the entire cast, and especially you, Kelsey, like came into the room with such strong interpretations of those characters in a genre of theater that's really difficult for like a modern cast to tackle, because that kind of that style is kind of, you know, passe now. It's not really being taught. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. It was such a joy to work on, because it was material that I was like, I haven't been given this kind of thing in like maybe ever, and it's just that like just full of flair and like camp and just craziness that I was like, oh, this is it. This is so great.
Now, do you think you'll ever take that into an audition, that song?
I think I might. Yeah? I think I might. You know, there's not a lot of like there's no track to it on the internet. I think there's like not even, when I was doing research for the character, I could barely even find the cast recording for it.
Right. Oh God, tell me about it. Yeah.
I would love to like make a great cut of that and be able to bring it into the room, because I think that I could, you know, just bring the audition room down. Yeah. Okay. So as someone who was an art student yourself, what is a piece of advice that you would give to a smart, driven, young artist who's coming out of art school, just beginning to navigate, you know, the real quote unquote industry? What would you tell them?
I would say two things. The first one is just always be open to new ideas, even if you think they're the wrong ideas. Like a lot of the stupid things I did coming out of grad school when I was starting out was just saying no to people whose ideas I thought were dumb and not trying them. And like it just, it's bad energy to put in the room, and B, like who the hell am I to think that I know everything about theater at like 24 or something at that time. So just even if your gut is telling you this might not work, just give it a try. Not to say that you have to commit to it, but always just kind of see where it leads. But you know, but always knowing that on the flip side of that is know where your boundaries are, and know like what you don't want to do, and stick to those things. So that's advice number one. And I think advice number two is don't be afraid to be unoriginal at first. You know, I think there's this pressure on writers and actors and other creative people to be like, I need to immediately find my own voice, my own brand. I need to immediately stand out from the crowd. And like we all start out by like imitating the people we love, like stealing the ideas we admire, and then slowly over a course of many years, like building an identity from that. I know when I was starting out in musical theater, I came from a classical background, but the show that got me into musical theater was Sunday in the Park with George. And for at least 6 years after that, and the decision to go into musical theater, I idolized Sondheim, like to no end. I think I've read more books about Sondheim than any other human being. So it was a lot of just studying his stuff, stealing from his stuff, and then reading his stuff. And then after a point, and why you helped with this too, after a point, I'm just like, you know what, I'm done with that. And I'm ready to move on and find something that little different than that. So don't be afraid of that first couple of years where you're just constantly stealing and imitating other people, because that's how we all learn to be artists. It's starting from that process. That's true.
And allowing ourselves to just sort of be where we are in our journey is so hard, because I think what you said about like feeling like we have to be branded or we have to like stand out, that is so big, especially for actors too. It's like coming out of a program, you're like, okay, what type am I? What kind of roles do I play? You know, like what box am I in?
Totally.
But I just think like, first of all, you know, it doesn't have to be just this one box of certain characters you can play and other ones you can't. But also like, you know, you might be drawn to certain characters now and totally different characters, you know, in 5 years. Like it doesn't it's fluid, I think.
Yeah. And get out of the theater once in a while. Like don't make your life just theater. Because if theater is an imitation of life and you got no life to imitate, then you're kind of stuck in this like self-referential headspace the entire time.
That's super true. And going back to, you know, your advice number one too, which I loved so much. You know, you said being open to ideas, and just even if it doesn't necessarily feel right, just to try it. And I think that goes back to what you said earlier about, you know, honing what feels right to you and what you can take on and what what then you'll leave behind. I think being open to ideas and being open to just trying things helps you discover like what does actually feel right to you and what does feel like you, right? Like you're not going to necessarily know for sure like who you are or what feels right to you unless you try things.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And the best people in the industry, the people who everyone loves to work with, they may have won like multiple awards and such. They're still the ones that are like, yeah, I'll try that. You know?
Yes.
They never presume to think that they know everything about it. And they're always just game to try something.
Yeah. I think that is definitely like a hallmark to a great artist is someone who's open to try, but at the end of the day, you know, can still be like, you know what, this doesn't feel right to me. And I need to do it this way, or I need to go in this direction. Yeah.
And there's a graciousness to it too, because as the more experienced artist, if you show someone younger that this idea, you know, has this flaw and there's weakness, by showing it to them as opposed to just saying it won't work, they'll learn much more by seeing you demonstrate it than just you saying, oh no, we're not doing that.
And that's in the spirit of collaboration.
Yeah.
You know, instead of like, oh, I'm more experienced than you, so I need to tell you that this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
That was definitely a pet peeve of mine in some acting classes I've taken, where the professor's just like so, you know, experienced and maybe like older in years, and they just sort of like sit there and kind of tell you what to do as the actor, and then they're like yes no. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, like I understand that you have so much experience and you have a breadth of wisdom to, you know, impart on us, and I appreciate that, but sometimes it's so like disconnected in that way.
Yeah.
Like and it's hard to be like, okay, well I don't know. It just seems like such a power dynamic, you know, and that can be hard to learn in an environment like that, I think.
Totally. It's the paradox of art, because you get more experience as you grow older, but then you also kind of get more out of touch with what's currently happening in art the older you get. So it's always that constant tension between like, I'm actually learning more about this, or I'm actually falling further behind. And then the insecurities come in, and like you said, the power dynamics come in. But that's what we deal with.
That is what we deal with. That's what we navigate. So part of that, I think, sort of, you know, what we're saying about power dynamics, that also plays a part in the concept of networking. And networking, like, is a big focus on this platform that I've created because it's such a daunting concept to me. Yeah. So I'm wondering, what does the concept networking mean to you? And additionally, has your perspective of the concept of networking changed at all in the last few years?
It has not changed too much. I'm not a great networker myself. I think the biggest thing is just don't be a dick, you know? And then whatever, if you aren't a dick and you don't schmooze and you do good work, you'll still get the calls. But like if you are a dick and you schmooze, like you're just not going to get any work. So it just comes from the personality.
What does schmoozing mean to you? Like what is that? It's like specifically in relation to networking.
Going to all the events, staying behind. You know, I'm always the first one out the door after the show's over. Because I hate talking about the show I just saw, because I need time to decompress and sort of hold it in my mind for a little bit and let the soil of it kind of grow before I can be like, oh, I like that, or I didn't like that, or something. Yeah. But yeah, there are people, and no knock on people who do schmooze really well. Like that's a skill I wish I had.
That's true. I know.
Yeah, it's like being conversational, being like aware of everything that's going on, the trends that are happening, the people in the room, I guess, all that stuff that makes you part of that community, which I still struggle with. Sometimes I'm better, sometimes I'm not. I think coming out of this quarantine, it'll be even more of a learning curve to jumpstart my social skills. Yeah. I don't know if you've done this. I've been doing this thing now where I realize, like, underneath my face mask, because I don't want to fog up my glasses, so I'm constantly just going like, letting the air go down to the bottom, and I feel like that's just gonna be like my face now when I take the face mask off. I'm just gonna go like girl all the time.
I don't wear glasses, so it's not the same issue, but I do find myself just walking around with my mouth like agape all the time. I'm just like, in my mask, like just breathing through my mouth. And I am genuinely, I've thought about this. I'm afraid that when there's no longer masks, like I'm not going to know what to do with my face.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a comedian who had a set a while ago about like she just saw a person's mouth for the first time in public and it was like singing porn on the street or something.
I know, we're like, oh, God. So, okay, I want to come back to networking because I want to know, since you're sort of you're like, okay, my philosophy, don't be a dick. You don't have to schmooze. Things will still, like, you'll still get the work that's meant for you. I love that outlook. But I'm wondering, like, so how do you network then if it's not necessarily in, like, the traditional ways of, like, being at these events and talking to all these people? Like, what is your sort of, like, method? I
just show up and do the work whenever I'm asked. That's kind of the way it is. And it's easy for me to say that now where I'm kind of, like, I'm not just completely fresh out of the gate. I have a little body of work and a little bit of a reputation to help me with that. But definitely the first year out of grad school, I was saying yes to everything. And part of that was to help my, green card. But also part of it was just saying yes to everything, getting out there. But
that is a huge piece of networking. Absolutely.
Yeah, and schmoozing, I do think schmoozing is a part of it, like it or not. And I do wish I was better at it, and schmoozing is a part of it. Yeah,
it is.
You gotta make friends. You gotta make connections.
But I mean, I love what you said about, you get in the room and you do good work and like that's what you do, because that ultimately, like, that's what's going to get you hired again. That is what is going to make people leave and be like, oh, I loved working with that Yan guy. Like, what's he doing? We should get him in on this other thing. You know what I mean? Like, I really think that is like at the heart of what networking is. Yeah. So if you can say yes to opportunities and get in the room, I think that is the hard part, just getting in the room.
And with actors, I found, like, the ones starting out, the ones that really stick in my mind as to, like, oh, I want to call up that person and work with them again. They're the people that, obviously the ones that come prepared to the rehearsal. And the ones who you don't have to worry a lot about, because they'll come with choices already made that you can comment on, as opposed to always being like, well, what should I do here? And you have to, like, constantly be worried about them a little bit. Like a director once said, like, if I don't remember having to say anything to you, that means, like, you were great and that I want to work with you again. It's kind of that.
It is kind of that. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Yan, this has been an amazing and very informative interview, and our time is already come to a close, believe it or not. That was like the fastest half hour ever. Of our viewer, CJ says, great wisdom, Yan. As per usual, I'm taking all of this out of context and applying it to general life advice. Love it. Thanks, guys. Thanks, CJ. CJ is a recurring viewer. He's here almost every week. He was a guest on the podcast. He's a musician. Great guy. Thanks for being here, CJ.
What does CJ stand for, CJ?
Oh, good question. I actually don't. I think I want to say it's Curtis.
Okay.
Is it Curtis? CJ, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so for everyone listening, if you liked this, if you were digging what Yan was saying, if you were picking up what he was putting down, you can find more of Yan on yanstuff.com. All of his info, everything you need to know. So check that out if you want to learn more. And Yan, it was such a pleasure. Thanks again for taking time out of your Friday night to join me. I'm so honored, and it was great to see you again full, like, year and almost a half later.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this, Kelsey. I really hope that we get to see each other in real life soon.
I hope so too, Yan. Yeah. I'm holding out hope for sure. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great weekend.
You too. Take care.
All right, everyone, that concludes another episode of Avenue A. I'm coming into the comments here. Oh, it stands for Curtis Joseph. Thank you. I knew it was Curtis. I didn't know it was Joseph. Thanks for sharing that with us, CJ. Zane, thank you for being here. Zane is one of our new viewers as well, but he's been here almost every week for the last few weeks. So thanks for your support, Zane. We have Nadine. Thanks for being here, everyone. It's so great to see everyone. Hi, Grandma. Grandma's #1 fan. She's always here. always in the house. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. If you want to find us on Instagram, we're at Avenue A Live. On YouTube.com/Kelsey Bentz. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. We're also on Facebook, Facebook.com/Avenue A Live as well. You can like our page and connect with us there. So thanks for being here and have a great weekend. Bye.